Hello, good afternoon. All right, just a few things here at the top, and then happy to jump in and take your questions. Yesterday, the Secretary of the Navy exonerated 258 black sailors who were unjustly court-martialed in the wake of the devastating explosion at the Port of Chicago Naval Magazine in California, which killed 320 sailors on July 17, 1944. After a thorough review of the case and related materials, the General Counsel of the Navy concluded that there were significant legal errors during the courts-martial and that the defendants were improperly tried together despite conflicting interests and denied a meaningful right to counsel. Secretary Austin applauded the Navy's legal review and decision to ensure our service members, our military families, and our civilian employees are treated with fairness and dignity, especially within our military justice systems. Switching gears, as you know, U.S. Central Command has been executing operations to surge humanitarian aid into Gaza through air, land, and sea. Yesterday, the Department of Defense announced that the temporary pier, or the Joint Logistics Over-the-Shore Capability that has been used to surge humanitarian assistance into Gaza through a maritime corridor, has concluded its operations. With collaboration from 12 nations, international partners, U.S.A.I.D., and the United Nations, the temporary pier successfully delivered nearly 20 million pounds of aid, which is the highest volume of humanitarian assistance the U.S. military has ever delivered into the Middle East. The temporary pier achieved its goal of providing an additive means of delivering high volumes of humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. In the coming days, CENTCOM will work with U.S.A.I.D. to deliver the remaining aid commodities currently afloat to the Port of Ashdod in Israel for onward distribution to Gaza, and will provide coordination and liaison support for humanitarian aid deliveries at the request of USAID when appropriate. And finally, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General C.Q. Brown Jr., met today with the Japanese State Minister of Defense, Japan Chief of Staff, and the chairman of the Republic of Korea Joint Chiefs of Staff in Tokyo. The military leaders discussed progress on the trilateral defense relationship, exchanged assessments on the regional security situation, stressed the importance of enhancing close trilateral coordination in response to the provocation posed by the DPRK, and reaffirmed their positions regarding the escalatory, dangerous, and aggressive behavior by the People's Republic of China throughout the region. The Tri-Chad leaders underscored that U.S.-Japan ROC security cooperation is critical not only to the security and prosperity of the Indo-Pacific region, but also to their shared global interest to ensure peace and stability in the Korean Peninsula, the Indo-Pacific, and beyond. And with that, I'd be happy to take your questions. Lita.
Hi, thanks, Sabrina. Can you just clarify a couple of things on the pier? The Army boats were used all along to transfer the aid from the floating dock to the Trident Pier. Will they be used to take aid from the dock, if there's any left there, to Ashdod at all, do you know? And just a couple of points on that.
Sure. Sorry, just for clarification, which dock are you referring to? The pier itself?
They were being used to take aid that was, the aid came from Cyprus to the big floating dock that was several miles offshore. The Army boats were used to take the aid from there to the Trident Pier.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Right? Are they going to be used to take the aid from the dock, floating dock, to Ashdod?
I believe, from my understanding, it's the aid that's on our ships right now will just be offloaded in Ashdod and then driven by contracted drivers or drivers that the WFP have identified into Israel. I'm not aware that those Army boats will have a role in that because the aid is already on the ships that would then pull into Ashdod and have it be directly transloaded.
And are these largely the DOT and commercial ships, or are these also Navy ships?
It's my understanding that these are U.S. military ships that are continuing to, that have the aid. And as you heard Vice Admiral Cooper yesterday say, that we are committed to making sure that the aid that has been transloaded onto our ships is transloaded off of our ships into Ashdod for further distribution into Gaza.
So are these ships that are in Cyprus, or are these ships that are at the pier?
I believe these are ships that are making its way or already at the pier. Look, this is ongoing moving. I believe also there's a few million pounds of aid that are on each of our vessels that need to be transloaded off. So it's going to take some time. We're committed to doing that, but how we do that, for more specifics, I direct you to CENTCOM just for more specifics if you want like specific ships, but we're just committed to making sure that that aid gets to Gaza.
Okay. And is that all in addition to the 5 million pounds of aid that Admiral Cooper yesterday said was still in Cyprus?
I believe what Admiral Cooper was referring to is there's 5 million pounds of aid total between Cyprus and on the ships that will get moved through the Ashdod corridor down into Gaza. So it's a total figure.
Last question.
Sure.
Will the military be involved at all in what is the future plan now to deliver aid from Cyprus to directly to the Ashdod pier and then from the pier into Gaza? Will the military have a role in that other than the coordination cell?
Our role will mainly shift to an advisory role. In the immediate future, we're going to maintain some coordination elements that have been in place, such as the coordination cell that is in Cyprus and in Israel. We want to make sure that aid is going to continue to flow into Gaza. But this new route that aid flows through Ashdod will ultimately be managed by USAID and other humanitarian organizations. So I'd include the World Food Program in that as well.
Okay, so then the coordination cell participation
right now, the coordination cell is still stood up and will remain in place for for a short time in the immediate. But we are working to ensure that all the aid gets into Gaza, and in order to do that, from what's on our ships and what's still at Cyprus, that coordination cell is still stood up. Yes.
Thank you. So I have a couple on Ukraine, then one on the Gaza pier following.
Sure.
So we heard Republican Vice President nominee Mr. Vance has repeatedly argued against military aid to Ukraine, and he said that the U.S., I quote, lacks the capacity to manufacture the amount of weapons Ukraine needs to win the war, in particular 155 millimeter shells and Patriot interceptors. What can you say to that?
So as you can appreciate, I'm not going to comment on political speeches or the campaign, but I think what you've seen from this department and from this administration is a commitment to Ukraine for as long as it takes. And that's what we're focused on. I think it's important to remember, too, that under this administration, we've invigorated our defense industrial base, and we are creating jobs right here at home when it comes to manufacturing 155 millimeter rounds and other capabilities that are not only enhancing our defense industrial base, but helping the Ukrainians. I also would push back on the notion that Ukraine can't win this war. We have seen them be incredibly successful on the battlefield. They continue to dig in and push the Russians back. This was never going to be over in a day. This is going to take time, and it has taken time, and it's going to continue to take time. And the support that Ukraine has garnered from all around the world, I think, is a true testament to the United States' also commitment to them. So appreciate the question, but I can only really speak to what the department is doing and what we're committed to doing.
Right. Sabrina, can you do you have a breakdown of how much funding has been allocated from this latest supplemental for military aid packages to Ukraine, and how much is still left?
I don't have a breakdown on from allocations of different PDA packages from the supplemental when it was last authorized. I mean, we've put out a press release every time we've authorized a drawdown package or a U.S.A. So I just encourage you to look back on what we have announced. I just don't have that breakdown by package in front of me.
Latest on the Gaza pier. So
Sure.
what ultimately led to the decision to dismantle the pier before all aid from Cyprus arrived in Gaza? And is there a final cost for the Gaza pier? Because we heard Vice Admiral Cooper said it came under other cost.
Yeah, so I'll take the cost first and then can address your other question. In terms of the cost, we're still doing our assessments, so we'll have more to share with you in hopefully the following days and weeks. We do expect it to come a little under budget, but we'll keep you updated. I just don't have a final number on that. In terms of why, well, I mean, again, as we've always said from the beginning, we always said this was going to be a temporary measure that was put into place. We are certainly aware, and as you have reported on, some of the weather conditions and environmental factors that have faced the pier. We know that sea states were going to get worse as the summer progressed. That is something that was always known. But I think what's important to remember is that all the aid that was in Cyprus or has gone to Cyprus has either been transloaded off of that temporary pier or will be moved into Ashdod. So we have moved out almost every single piece of aid that has come in through Cyprus. So I think that's very important to remember. I also think that it's important to remember that this pier delivered the highest volume of humanitarian assistance the U.S. military has ever delivered to the Middle East. So I know there have been criticisms, and I know from some people here in this room, and I know that there have been some setbacks when it has come to the pier. But at the end of the day, we delivered nearly 20 million pounds of aid, and I think that is a real testament to the commitment of our personnel at CENTCOM, and the commitment to also ensuring that other avenues opened up, such as the Ashdod corridor. Natasha.
Thanks, Sabrina. So just one clarifying question. So yesterday, Admiral Cooper, he told reporters that, at least for the near term, quote, we expect to use the same vessels that have been transporting aid from Cyprus to the pier, now using those same vessels transporting aid from Cyprus to Ashdod.
Yeah.
But you said a few minutes ago, I think, that it would be mostly an advisory role. So which is it? Is it an advisory role, or is it actually the military transporting this aid, continuing transporting the aid from Cyprus to Ashdod now?
So once we complete the transfer of aid of the, I think Admiral Cooper mentioned about 5 million pounds of aid still needs to be loaded off of our ships. That's when our role will transition into more of an advisory role, but we have to complete that transfer of aid. So it's not like the aid is going to sit on our ships and all of a sudden it's not going to move off or go anywhere. We're going to help, of course, with offloading it into Ashdod. And then once that aid moves off into Ashdod and moves into Gaza, this is going to be a mission that transitions into a next phase, which will be managed by U.S.A. and other partners.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, Liz.
Thanks. Earlier this week, there was some reporting that Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq was targeted by some Iranian proxy drones. Do you have any details of what happened, how many were shot down?
Yeah, thanks, Liz, for the question. So that's correct. On July 16th, 2 one-way attack UAS systems attacked U.S. and coalition forces at Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. One system was successfully destroyed and one impacted the base, but it caused minimal damage. Yeah. Konstantin.
Thanks. So the National Guard Bureau Chief, General Hokanson, is retiring in 2 weeks, I believe. A replacement for him has not been announced. Has the Pentagon sent a recommendation or a name to the White House?
Yeah, so as you know, all nominations and announcements will come from the White House. I don't have anything to read out today and certainly wouldn't get into conversations that we're having with the White House. But when we have that announcement ready to be made, it will be public.
I mean, it looks like we're setting up a situation where there's basically not going to be a transition period between Hokanson and whoever replaces him. Is there any concern from the Pentagon that there's not a replacement ready to go?
Again, no, there is not. Yes, Charlie.
Sabrina, forgive me this question. Is there any reaction from Defense Secretary Austin after President Biden appeared to blank his name in a recent interview?
I've seen that clip, and I will say that I would urge you to look at the full context of the clip as he was answering a question, I believe, more about the administration more broadly, but would refer you to the White House for more of his comments. The secretary has absolute confidence in the president. He was just with the president for at least 2 days at the NATO summit, spent many, many hours with him in bilateral meetings, was there for his press conference. He has absolute confidence in the president.
But no reaction from this specific interview?
No reaction from the specific interview other than that he has absolute confidence in the president.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes.
Thank you, Sabrina. Recently, UNRWA has been announced that 5 of their schools in Gaza has been targeted by the Israeli military in the last 10 days. And these schools were using as refugee camps. So these strikes came despite of calls from the Secretary Austin to his Israeli counterpart to take all necessary steps to minimize civilian harm. Do you believe that the Israeli take this warning seriously? And what do you say about that?
So I haven't seen, and I apologize, I haven't seen the exact reports that you're referencing. We do believe that the Israelis do take our concerns seriously. civilian casualties and the need to reduce civilian casualties is a topic of conversation on almost every single call that the Secretary has done with Minister Gallant, and that continues not just at his level, but at other levels throughout this building and the interagency. So it's something that we take very seriously. We think our concerns are being heard. We have seen behaviors change. There's absolutely the need, and there must be more done. But I just can't address those specific reports, unfortunately. I just haven't seen them. Yeah, Noah.
I'm wondering if you have any reaction to China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs yesterday saying that they were shutting down talks with the U.S. on arms control in response to objections over weapon sales to Taiwan. Have you seen that statement, and do you have any thoughts on the future of arms control talks going forward?
Yeah, I'm just not going to respond to the statement, but I can tell you that we have a commitment to the One China policy. You've seen the Secretary continue to raise concerns about the PRC's behavior within the region, and as I read out at the top, the chairman was just there in the region, not only deepening ties there, but also raising concerns about some of the behavior and activity that we're seeing. So I'll just leave it at that.
There was also some confusion on when they were actually paused, whether it took place earlier in the summer after new President Lai's speech in Taiwan, or whether it actually was cut yesterday or this week. Do you have any sense on that?
Yeah, I'm just not going to be able to provide more on that, but thank you. Yes.
Thanks. I wanted to ask if you could give us an update, if possible, on the AUKUS agreement. Are there any next steps? I thought I heard plans to make an announcement this fall. I don't know if that was under Pillar 2 or just some other steps in the AUKUS agreement.
I don't have any announcements today, but certainly when it comes to AUKUS, and I know that's something that has been of interest, we always, of course, make those and read those out, but I just don't have anything for you today.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yes.
Thank you, Sabrina. On the attack on Al-Assad air base, do you know specifically which group launched the attack?
No, I don't have specifics to name, or I don't have a specific group. We know that these are IRGC-backed militias that have launched these attacks on U.S. forces in the past. Most likely, more than not, it is one of those affiliate groups, but I can't give you specifics other than that.
One more. From a military perspective, how do you look at the attempts by Turkey and Syria to normalize their relations? Does it come up with any U.S. posture change in case these two states reach to a point that normalize their ties?
Yeah, I just don't have anything for you on that. We have our own relationship with Turkey. We'll continue to engage our counterparts there, but I just don't have more for you on that one. Liz.
Thanks. Just to follow up on the Al-Assad
Sure.
attack, was this the first attack on a U.S. military base in the Middle East since February?
Yes, that's correct.
And is there any sense that these attacks from these proxy groups are going to resume, or do you think this was a one-off?
Can't predict the future. As you know, I wouldn't also speculate on that, and can't get into intelligence matters. But we certainly don't want to see these attacks resume on our forces, and we've made that clear both, publicly and privately. I can't speculate on the future of, we're always going to take measures to protect our forces, and I'll just leave it at that. Okay, yes, Jared, and then I'll hop over to
Real quick follow-up on the Al-Assad attack. Has the United States responded to this in any way, or are there plans to do so?
Well, we shot down one of the UAS systems, so I think that'd be a response. I'm not going to get ahead of any military decisions or operations. Moshe.
Have there been any attacks in Syria as well?
There was not an attack. One of the U.S. and coalition forces did destroy one uncrewed aerial system near Green Village, but we don't have an assessment of what the intended target was. So I wouldn't characterize that as an attack, but they did destroy it out of an abundance of caution.
An incident did happen in Syria.
Yes, an incident did happen in Syria. Our forces did shoot down one UAS system, but again, it's unclear what the intended target was, and there was no injuries, no damage to infrastructure resulting from this. Okay, Matt, and then I'll go into the back.
Just staying on that topic, can you say anything about Iran's possible role in that attack? We talked about these Iran-backed groups. Is it just broadly Iran-backed, or do you think that any more direct hand in this particular attack?
I don't have any more information. I think we can assess that these are Iranian-backed groups that launched this attack. We've seen this behavior before. We certainly don't want to see an escalation on our forces in the region. And so we're going to, of course, take the proper measures that we need to ensure their safety and security, but I don't have more for you other than that.
Thanks.
Okay, Lita, and then one more in the back.
Just to clarify, wasn't there an attack on a U.S. base in Syria in April?
I believe we did shoot down something in April, but I don't know if that the intended target was the base.
Okay, because I thought that this was the first attack since April. You're saying it's the first since.
I'm tracking it since February. Yes. Yeah. Yes, one more.
Thank you. Regarding to the attacks on the Assad base, have you communicate with the Iraqi government, and do you believe that they are doing enough to stop these kinds of attacks? And did you get any signs, like before these attacks happened, from the Iraqi government, of the officials there?
We have a great partnership with the Iraqi government. I'm not going to get into private conversations, as we never do from the podium. But we believe that we're taking the proper measures to ensure security and safety of our forces. We'll continue to engage our Iraqi partners on the ground. But I don't have more for you. All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone.